Okay, final question. This one from Anxiously Chronoed Figured. Hi, DF Crew. Do you think we'll see any ray tracing on Switch 2? With DLSS on, I can see Witcher 3 with RTGI running on the hardware, or Cyberpunk 2077 with the RT Shadows. I wish we saw any first-party game with this feature, but Nintendo don't do RT. Nintendo don't do RT, I guess. Oliver, I think it's viable. The hardware's doable. The hardware's got
Yeah.
hardware accelerated ray tracing features, so why not? We've also obviously heard the rumor about the Matrix Awakens demo, Unreal Engine 5,
Hmm.
which has some element of ray tracing to it, whether it's software or hardware, we don't know. What would you expect to see?
Well, I would say that we Nintendo don't know that Nintendo don't do RT because
Oliver.
Nintendo. Yeah, that's a stretch. Anyways, Nintendo has not shipped hardware in the past with ray tracing capabilities.
No.
It could very well be the case that the new Zelda has ray traced reflections or something. It could well be the case that some of their smaller scale titles are more experimental with ray tracing in a way that we would perhaps not expect, but could well be a possibility. But yeah, I would say the fact they got Matrix Awakens running on the Switch in apparently quite reasonable form, according to the people who did see it. Obviously, we don't have any kind of resolutions or settings or metrics or capture or anything like that, but we do know that it looked like a pretty credible version of Matrix Awakens in the room. That certainly does suggest they have some kind of decent ray tracing. Now, if that's is that hardware lumen, maybe not. Is that software lumen? I mean, that's a matter of some discussion, but it is ray tracing in either case. I think when you look at DLSS, that probably does carry you pretty far on the GPU side of things. I mean, they could have a variant of DLSS 3.5 ray reconstruction for all we know. I mean, certainly the hardware seems like it'd be perfectly capable of running that potentially. Might be demanding, but who knows? I mean, UE5 is pretty scalable to lower end stuff. I think the question there is really like if you can stomach the image quality, and DLSS maybe answers that question. But I also think when you look at some ray tracing effects, like when you look at RTGI, you have to remember that some things you can render at kind of criminally low resolutions. Like with RTGI, you can be rendering it at like 1/8 scene resolution, 1/8 internal resolution rather. And you can be still be getting good results, good enough results. I think you do see that with the Windows handhelds in certain UE5 titles. So, I mean, the hardware is there. We're going to see ray tracing in the hardware. I'm almost certain of it at this point. I think the question is really just how far do people take it? Obviously, it is very limited hardware, even relative to something like a Series S. But I think we will see it. I think we'll see a fair bit of it. Just a question of how far things go.
Yeah, I think if you go back to the T239 video I did, which basically attempted to mimic as close as we can the mooted specifications of the T239, ray tracing was possible. We could run Fortnite on 1080p DLSS performance mode. It actually looked fine. And we could use both hardware and software paths there, circa 30 frames per second. Not too bad, I'd say. Control, I managed to get low settings there with medium ray tracing, which is effectively the RT reflections, and played out at 1080p 30 frames per second with RT. It's all sort of eminently doable. It's all going to be down to developers to choose how they deploy those features, if they choose to deploy them at all. Also, the question of what is the difference between a Switch 2 portable mode and what is a Switch 2 docked mode. There have been some various rumors circulating that the difference is actually going to be more pronounced this time around. Who knows? So, yeah, interesting stuff. I'm not sure RTGI on The Witcher 3 is viable, bearing in mind how heavy it is on existing consoles, and the fact that I don't think they did it at all on Xbox Series S. RT Shadows Cyberpunk 2077, I don't think it's impactful enough to be worth putting in the developmental effort there. But I do think there will be some ray tracing effects on Switch 2. It's just the case of, exactly as I said, how the developers choose to use that particular aspect of the tool set.